Can I taste your juice?
All right, so you kind of hinted at something right there, right? Because I mean, Giant Vapes is you guys are known for e-liquid, right? Not necessarily hardware. And before I talk about that, you're using a device, you're using a tank. What is your favorite device currently? You have to ask these questions because
Um, you know, I don't really have a favorite device.
okay,
I've been switching between the Aspire Archon,
okay,
the Smoke Alien,
okay,
and the Sigelli 213.
okay.
They all work pretty well. They all have good battery life. They
Mm-hmm.
can all get me through a whole day with two batteries, which is nice. And then as far as the tanks go, um, the original Cleto I like. I've been using a Baby Beast. I'm not a cloud chaser. I usually vape, between 35 and 50 watts, depending on the juice. So,
Okay.
higher than you, but not crazy.
Everybody's higher than me.
So,
That's
yeah,
easy.
well, but yeah, so I kind of bounce around. I find different stuff tastes better in different products. Even down to different flavors tasting better in different tanks, even at the same wattage. So
Yeah, there are. I
um,
mean, there are subtle differences, and
yeah,
I talk about this a lot. I always say, like, if you were to ask a reviewer, like, or if a reviewer were to say, "This tank tastes amazing. It's unbelievable. The flavor of this tank." I would really question that reviewer because at this point, considering they're all using the same or similar materials, they all have the same or similar airflows, right? They're all basically doing the same or similar things.
hmm
The differences are going to be very, very subtle.
hmm
I don't think we're going to have like game changing flavor from a
right,
tank unless maybe they got a coil in there and there's no wicking material and they're somehow spraying the liquid right onto the coil. It's going to take
like
something like
like that one
that.
that you invented.
Like, yeah, don't tell everybody there. I can't believe you said that. Yeah, but right. I mean, that's what it's going to take to like really change the flavor. Doing
Absolutely.
things completely different at this point.
hmm
That's like whenever anybody asks me, they're like, "Do you think this tank tastes better or this tank tastes better?" I mean, if it's like really kind of well known, I'll be able to say. But most of the times, I would have to say, okay, well, let me take those two tanks, let me do similar builds, let me put the same e-liquid on, let me vape them like this all night long,
Right,
and then maybe I'd be able to give you an answer. And most of the times, it's not even better; it's just different,
right.
right?
Yep.
And then it becomes a subjective thing again because which different do you prefer,
Right.
right? I mean, that's kind of the way it is. But what about e-liquid? What's your all day? It's not like you have anything to choose from either. I mean, let's go
I
out to the warehouse and
I I don't have an all day.
oh, he's not going to commit. He's
No,
not
no, I
committing.
really don't. I don't have
Okay.
an all day.
Yeah.
I'm vaping buttermilk pie right now from
Yeah.
Primitive,
Okay.
which is really good, and most people have probably heard of it because
Hold it up. I'm just going to hold it up
it's
on the
one of our
screen.
best
There you
sellers.
go, right there. Okay. The correct
But
answer was B, liquid, but that's okay. I'll let you slide. Okay.
I do like your juice
All right.
though.
Cool. Cool.
But yeah, I mean, because I spend a lot of time vaping samples and stuff that gets sent to me, so it's
I can
kind of,
imagine.
when I travel, I'll just honestly, my all day is like whatever is closest to my carry-on, pretty much when I'm packing. But I just happen to be vaping buttermilk pie, which I enjoy very much right now.
Cool.
So
So we'll get into like what's coming and your hint at hardware there. But how do you feel about APDI and sucralose? What do you think about that issue there?
oh man, you know what?
I had to throw
I
that your way.
no, I know, and it's a legitimate concern. I mean, I know that I like the taste of all three. Unfortunately, I mean, from what I've seen, and this may be completely off base, but from what I've seen, there isn't really proof one way or the other
Right.
yet.
Right.
And I really want there to be. And for now, it's impossible for me
Right.
to have that be a determining factor when bringing product into
I get it.
Giant
Right.
because very few people are even willing to disclose it.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately,
Okay.
I hope that we find some good data. I mean, regardless of which direction it goes, I just want to see some good data that shows whether or not these certain chemicals are truly harmful
Right.
in the long term. And
Yeah.
until then,
So,
honestly, I really don't know.
and I mean, Dimitri has a really, really strong opinion on that, and I have an opinion on it. I did
Hmm.
a whole like write up on Taster Juice about it, and and I actually had a really good conversation with somebody in the e-liquid and flavor business, and he said we're basically at a point where we're beyond just having a report that shows AP and DI. Now we're getting to the point where we're doing real science on lung cells, and I mean we're
Good.
getting, and I think that's where we need to be, right?
Yes.
It's not, well, it's bad simply because it's in there. It needs to be, it's bad because it's bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we need science with everything vaping, because you always see that 95% number getting bantered around,
At
right?
least 95%.
At least 95%. And and I always try to explain this. Vaping is very, very different from a cigarette. A cigarette is a cigarette is a cigarette. Vaping is way different. Vaping is different devices, different wattages, different resistances, different materials, different e-liquid consumption rates, different materials in the e-liquids, different flavorings. It's so much different, right? And with vaping, unlike with smoking, whether or not you smoke like a Marlboro Red or a Marlboro Light, come on, I mean, there's not that much there. But with vaping, you can truly choose the harm level that you want to vape at.
Hmm.
And I think the science needs to be out there to show you what those numbers look like.
Yep.
Right? So maybe vaping 95% safer is a Juul. Maybe it's a Juul, right?
Yep.
And maybe not quite 95% is vaping a 300-watt tank at 360 watts, right? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think that science really, really needs to be out there to allow people who care, okay, to make an educated decision on how they choose to do things.
Yeah, and so business owners can make a decision on whether or not they want to carry products that could potentially be
Right.
harmful.
Right.
But it's just, it's really difficult because there's really no way for us to tell right now.
And we talked about something similar before upstairs, when like temperature control came out.
Oh man, I love temperature control, but I hate it so much.
I am the same.
Oh,
I am the
it's
same in the
such-
same exact
oh my god,
category.
it's so brilliant.
Yep.
Because you take out, I mean, the formaldehyde studies, right? I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, or if you don't know, we'll just assume that I'm wrong because I usually am. But the formaldehyde studies, I believe it was proven after the fact that where the formaldehyde was coming from was from the wick material.
It's the dry coil phenomenon.
Right,
You're
it's the dry
absolutely
coil.
correct. Yeah.
And temperature control, when it works properly, completely eliminates
Right.
combustion of the wick material.
Right.
That's incredible. I just wish they could get the technology to be consistent.
Yeah. No, there's just,
Oh my god.
there is no way.
I mean, I'm still vaping in wattage mode, even though I have a device
Right.
that's capable of temp control, because I don't like the way the temp control works.
Right. I vape, I would say, almost like when temperature control first came out, I was like really temperature control. I was like
Yeah.
vaping nothing but temperature control. Now I would say I'm almost back to 50-50.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because it's just so 400 degrees in my world is not necessarily 400 degrees in your world.
Right.
With a different device, with a different tank, with a different material. It's just so. I was telling you before, I came up with that temperature control calibration system where I was able to dead on accurately get my temperature control right. And what I did was I put a certain build in a certain tank, and I put it on a certain device, and I set it for a temperature, and then I had a die with a bunch of different temperatures on it, and I would roll it down 430 degrees. All right, that's where I'm at today. Perfect, right?
Perfect.
Because because it is so all over the place, and it's just the nature of that technology. It allows for too many different variables to really affect the temperature.
Yep.
But when I first heard about temperature control, and when Brandon from Evolve first introduced me to it, I thought the same thing you did.
Game changer.
Game changer. I mean, and it was in a way. I mean, it was a game changer because now everything has temperature control built into it, right?
Mhm.
But it was like, oh my God, liquid companies are going to be able to put right on their bottle, vapes best at 430 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
And by the way, on that same bottle, do not exceed 500 degrees, right? Because at that point, that's when the liquid starts to break down into its harmful constituents, right?
Yep.
But it never happened because
No.
it's all over the place.
It's frustrating.
It is. So, I mean, great idea, and it's still, hey, look, it still works. When you set it up the right way, the wattage still backs off, and it doesn't allow you to have a dry coil.
Mhm.
But there's just way too many variables, and it puts too much human error into your hands, or user error into your hands, because you can have temperature control go horribly wrong on you too.
Unfortunately, that's how a lot of devices are, which is what's so scary for new people.
Right. So scary for new people. That was an awesome segue right there. Look at that. That's going to work really, really well. You talked about, like, okay, so what's coming next for Giant Vapes, and you hinted at hardware. You're not known for hardware right now, but what is next? What's coming?
So I'll give you the background as to why we made the choice we did with
and
hardware.
I know there's stuff going on too that he's not telling me, right? Or not telling you, at least, right?
Yeah.
I'm a walking NDA, but go ahead.
We've got a few big things we're working on that I can't talk about, but it's pretty exciing. But what I can
are they
talk
big
about,
things or are they giant things?
Giant.
Okay,
Giant things.
get it right.
So,
right.
We are going to be expanding our hardware offering. We are partnering up with Global Source Distribution. Great company. It's the people that are behind Central Iowa Vapor, which is an unbelievable store chain. If you're in the Iowa area, I highly recommend you go to these stores. Especially if you are a smoker.
Yeah.
They are just so good at taking care of new vapors, and they have a great selection of products that are really meant for helping people transition that want to, find an alternative to smoking, since I'm not allowed to say that it's safer.
On my channel.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what you said, basically, what he told me upstairs was, now you got my curiosity up, and I really want to go visit one of those shops and, like,
they're
give them a little
great,
bit of love.
and they're wonderful people. It's a very family atmosphere. It's run by a family. They're wonderful, wonderful people. I'm excited to be working with them, and they've been really good to us, and they've been providing me with the data that has been the reason why we haven't brought more hardware on. So one of the the reason why for a long time we carried a couple of high-end things here and there, but for the most part it was just Aspire products, is because Aspire had the lowest fail rate out of all of the companies coming out of China.
Right.
That may still be the case today. I don't know for sure, but now the market's evolved. There's a lot of good products out on the market that aren't made by Aspire at this point, and we want to expand our offering both in the the established vapor and gear for them, like the aliens and the 213s and that type of kit, and also products for smokers that are going to make it easier for them to transition. The Vision spinners and the AIOs, and simple, easy to use products that are less intimidating and less complicated, and something you don't need to read a 20-page manual to understand, or sit with
especially with some of the manuals that come in these boxes.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like an IKEA assembly. But and we're also, in addition to that, and I think that's very exciting personally, we're going to be expanding the hardware offering, not only for the regular customers that we've had forever that use the more powerful devices, but also just because we want to use this as an opportunity to bring new customers in and people that are transitioning from smoking, and because, like we had talked about briefly before, I feel like that's been kind of lost.
So do I.
Everybody markets to vapors, nobody's marketing to smokers, and that's why nobody's getting new customers now, because the smokers are just seeing what's inside a convenience store.
Yeah.
And we're not there.
Right.
So, but we're trying to fix that, and we're also trying to carry more liquids that are better suited for new vapors, stuff that's more in the, the 50-50 realm, PGVG, products that are maybe a little simpler. We have some stuff on the site already. Telios Pure is a good example. B-Liquid is a good example. And we have other products like that too that are really designed more for a new customer that's not looking for something super complex, but something that tastes really good and is a good premium product, like actual premium, not everything's called premium.
Right.
And be able to have an enjoyable experience and get off cigarettes. And the funny thing is 95% of these people are just going to continue to use that setup forever.
Yeah.
I mean, like I told you about the mortgage guy I was talking to earlier today, and he at the end of our call, he asked me about, getting a replacement Vision Spinner too, because he's his has died, and the guy's been using it for 3 years now.
Right.
So
And they're
those are the people that are they're almost like they're forgotten.
right. Yeah. Believe me, I totally agree with you. Actually, we're working on something as well. Dimitri and I are working on something along those lines.
Cool.
Because I think those people really, really have been forgotten. I use an example. I've given this talk a couple of times on stage. Okay, so let's take a look at this device, right? Okay, so this device has variable wattage, variable voltage, has a bypass mode. It also has temperature control. But to use temperature control, you got to find the right coil and make sure that you set up the device for the material that you're using. Be it nickel, titanium, or stainless steel, unless you're using a different kind.
Or I could just light the stick on fire. Like, I mean, it seems like an easy decision.
Yeah, right.
I mean, of course they're terrified.
Yeah.
Like, God, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but somehow that's gotten forgotten in all of this, and
yeah,
it just.
So it's
and there's a market for that.
Of course,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely,
I mean, I'm using an Alien right now, and it's one of these devices that you're talking about,
right?
And I enjoy it, but I've been vaping for
right
forever,
right.
And
so at the end of that example was you go through all of that stuff and you light it up and you say, "Here, Mom, use this," right? And Mom is going to look at that screen and everything it's going
right, gone.
And she's going to be right back to her cigarette the stick that you light on fire.
Yep,
absolutely.
Stick plus fire, much easier.
There's no screen on the cigarette.
So
yeah,
I'm going to flip this on you, Phil, and why don't you tell me a little bit about your inspiration for the Beeline?
So the inspiration,
since we're talking about new vapors right now.
So the inspiration for the Beeline was basically looking at everything that was coming out, right? And trying to go after a very difficult market to go after, which is the transitioning vapor. It's very, very easy to market to a vapor.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely hard to market to a smoker.
Yep.
Right? But I mean that was the idea behind the line. It was to offer something that was maybe a little bit more professional, a little bit more adult in the imagery. Right, it was not a crazy flavor name. It was the flavor name is a description of the flavor itself. Right, because this is when that came to me was when Mom comes over, and Mom says, I need some e-liquids. I said, okay. I said, here's a box. I said, go through the box and find something you like. Right, and it's like, what does camel blood taste like? Right, I'm like, Ma, I don't know. I'd have to go online. Okay, what does devil's spit taste like? I said, Ma, I don't know. We'd have to go online. Yeah. Right. So I mean, it was to get away from that. Like strawberry pastry tastes like strawberry pastry. Coconut vanilla yogurt tastes like coconut vanilla yogurt. I mean, it was that kind of thing. But it was also very important to me was to keep the AP and DI out.
Yep.
Okay, but to also keep the sweeteners out. Okay, yep. Because I just have this fear. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just have this fear that the sweeteners are going to become the next APDI bad guy, right? And whether that happens or whether it doesn't, I know people really, really enjoy their sweeteners. That's terrific, but I don't know enough about them. So it's rather than like going through and maybe like reformulating, which you're really not supposed to do now anyway, right?
Right.
Just keep it out, and also go with a thinner blend that I know, number one, carries flavor better, so I can have like lower flavor concentrations, right? What do you call it? Works better in some tanks that have a hard time wicking, thicker e-liquids.
Yep.
Nautilus
tanks,
right, exactly right,
friendly
products, exactly yep. right. So the idea was to have a line that was truly designed for the beginning transitioning vapor or smoker, or for those people who still enjoy that experience with vaping. Yep. See, like for me, if I don't have my throat hit, I'm not a happy guy.
Yeah,
that's just how I
actually like. I like throat hit too. That's why I still vape 6. It's not because I need the nicotine.
Right.
When I vape 3, it tastes like flavored air, and it doesn't taste. The best way to describe it for me is, you're a Diet Coke guy.
I am a Diet Coke guy.
What tastes better to you, Diet Coke or flat Diet Coke?
Diet Coke.
Right, and that's basically the difference between 3 and 6 for me.
Right.
And for people that enjoy throat hit, like you need the sting. I like that a little bit. I
like it to be a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
Like I liked a cigarette because a cigarette was a little bit harsh.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, so that was like really the inspiration behind the brand and why I did things the way I did. Because you hear a lot of this where you've got this e-liquid company, and they're like, yeah, I did this because of the smoker, because I want, I'm, all about, converting the smoker. And okay, tell me more about your line. Well, we're high VG and it's available in 0 and 3.
Right.
Okay, so what smoker exactly are you, after? Because I'm not sure which one that,
Yeah.
especially for transitioning,
Right.
But I always said we need to give these people product that they're familiar with, that has a similar experience, that they can feel comfortable with making the transition. Once they make that transition and their cigarettes are out the window for good, I don't care where they go. I don't care if they are vaping a 360-watt device with a 300-watt tank. I don't care, right? But we got to make them comfortable, getting them into it, giving them something that they're familiar with, something they're comfortable with. And of course, there are stories out there where, even the transitioning, they needed direct lung more. Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
But I still feel like that mouth to lung experience is very, very important for the transitioning.
Well, that's what they're going to do naturally. Just because that's how they smoke a cigarette. Nobody
Right.
takes a direct lung hit with a cigarette.
I had one guy tell me, he's like, yeah, no, I vape cigarettes direct lung. I'm like, really? How do you even do that?
That's gotta hurt.
It can't be pleasant. But yeah, I mean, that's why. And so I've heard this a lot too. Like, Phil, you didn't evolve the way vaping did. You didn't evolve from mouth to lung to direct lung, and you didn't evolve from low wattage to high wattage.
Yeah, but most vapors don't.
Well, but you can't tell them that, because
Yeah.
a lot of people think that their style is the only style,
Right.
Okay, but I always look at it like this. Number one, I'm not smoking, so it's working for me. I don't care how everybody else is doing it, right? And every vapor should feel that way. Your style, so like the only right style for you is your style, and you're the only person who knows that. And no matter what style you settle on, your style is the right style. You keep doing it, and don't let anybody tell you anything different,
Yep.
right? But the other thing is too, and I had a very, very fascinating conversation with a very, very fascinating guy who kind of looks like you, but he's a lot more gray.
I think I know. Is his name Mike also?
His name is also Mike, right?
Funny.
And we talked about like what vaping was in 2006 and what vaping is today. And vaping has certainly evolved. Vaping has changed. The way we vape has changed. It has evolved, right? But there is something during this time here and this time here that has not evolved at all. And that's the way people smoke.
Right.
Right? So the needs of the smoker back then are exactly the needs of the smoker today. The needs of the vapor may not be, right? But, I mean, smoking hasn't evolved, right? And
Yep.
the way, so I still vape the way I enjoy it. But, the way you vape, you enjoy it, good for you. You're not smoking, good for you.
That's it. That's
Yep.
that's all that matters at the
Yep.
end of the day. So, I actually have a couple other questions I wanted to ask you about the B line.
Okay. Oh, good. We get to talk about me for a little while.
Yeah, why not? Why not? So, where did you? So I know about the PB combine thing for the logo, but like, where did you come up with the design for the branding?
We went to an ad agency because, believe it or not, there was a name for this liquid before it was B.
Oh, really?
Okay, and it was called Transition.
That's a good name.
Yeah, very good name. And I have bottles back there with the Transition label that I could show you.
Oh, cool.
Okay. The problem is that there were already e-liquids or shops, or there was enough stuff out there that we wouldn't be able to trademark it. So
Right.
we kind of went away from that, and we had a whole bunch of ideas. We had all kinds of things on a piece of paper, and eventually we were like, what about just B? Right?
Right.
Just the letter of the last name, because the line is obviously me. And what about just B? And I was like, it's great because first of all, it's simple, it's eye catching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be whatever you want it to be, right? So, and then we came up with the whole, like, be satisfied, be successful,
Yeah.
and it really just worked, right?
Yeah.
And then as far as the look of it, that is definitely not my B. Okay, because my hand, I got the handwriting of a 3-year-old.
Oh,
And I tell anybody, like, the whole autograph thing is, like, still freaks me out to this day, because number one, I don't consider myself anybody who should be signing an autograph. But, like, if I do sign an autograph, I'm, like, embarrassed because I have chicken scratch, left-handed engineered chicken scratch. You understand that?
I
right?
understand completely, and I 100%.
Right.
Because now, because of the Vapon that I was on the cover of, I get sometimes people come up and ask me to sign it. I'm like, are you sure you want me to ruin your magazine? because I also have the handwriting of a doctor.
It's funny that you say that because this is going back several years. A woman came up to me. She wanted me to sign her mod, right? And I was like, fine. And I took the battery cover off, and I'm getting ready to sign. She's like, no, 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 no. Sign the outside of it. I'm like, you really don't want me to do that? I mean, because it's not perfectly level, and it's going to be. She goes, no, you don't understand. I really want you to. So I autographed it for her, and I looked at it, and I was like, I felt so horrible. I said, come with me, right? I took her to a vendor. I bought her a brand new one. And I said, I feel like I just ruined this for you. I said, use this one. I mean, that's a true story, right?
I believe you.
Yeah,
That's
oh
awesome.
my God. Oh my God. But yeah,
I'm sure she cherishes it. Anyway.
you know what? I hope she does. And you know, the whole autograph thing, like I said, I don't like to do it, but if it will make somebody happy,
that's the
right?
Same
Or if it could potentially be maybe add some value to something for somebody, or to be used for advocacy, like you know, if
right,
I will do it all day long. Yeah, I will be happy to do that for you.
That
right?
Makes sense.
But we could actually let's because this is funny, right? So when we came up with the B, right, which is definitely not my B, we had some people, okay, because you know people like to pick on everything. What they were doing is they were putting a little slit there, okay, and they were putting little hairs down here. Okay, so you know what I'm getting at, right? You know what I'm getting at. And you know when they showed that to me, I said, okay, yeah, right. I get first of all, haha, very funny. You know, people, you know, with all the labels that are out there, they're going to pick on that, right?
Right.
You know? But I said, if you're going to do that, like the slit, I don't mind, but don't draw the hairs because I do shave mine. It would be more accurate if I. Okay.
That's fair. Maybe just a little stubble.
By the way, what for? Okay, so let's see. Okay, you know that guy, right?
I do.
Okay, and we'll go back to that. Explain this guy.
Well, so
because he looks an awful
he
lot.
He does look.
Like,
you know what's funny is that's not intentional. I know that's from EverQuest, and I never played EverQuest.
Really?
I never played EverQuest.
Okay.
I'm a Dungeons and Dragons guy.
Okay.
So like not online, like
but it's
pen and paper, old school, rolling the dice.
Right.
But it does kind of look like me. That's funny.
Yeah, it's just
I don't have a unibrow though.
No, you don't.
Maybe I should.
But you should, and dye it all red. Yeah. And then there's this photo here too. Now this is I went online looking for a photo of you and me, and like this, I got millions of like Facebook photos out there. So this is what I found. Okay, so I know this guy giving an interview right here. Okay, and by the way, you did have hair at that point.
I just because I'm lazy.
You didn't have hair.
Yeah.
Now Dimitri appears to be interviewing you.
Yeah.
I'm holding the mic, but I appear to be falling asleep. So I'm not sure what it is you're saying exactly, but I don't look too interested in it.
Yeah, I think the you falling asleep had more to do with the Dimitri's line of questioning.
It could be. Yeah. It could be.
Yeah.
And I mean
that's back when my facial hair matched the G in the Giant Vapes logo.
Right. Yeah. And your beard was not nearly as breathtaking as it is now.
No.
Right. Do you remember what was in the bag?
I don't. Probably food.
But anyway, that was the photo that I came up with. But yeah, I mean that's where the B came from, and that's kind of like the story of the line. But you had another question about it?
Yeah. What's your favorite flavor out of the line?
So I got 3.
Okay.
Okay. So the flavors are a traditional tobacco because I mean I feel like I have to have a tobacco, especially since it's a transitioning product, right? Agree. A mint tobacco because there are a ton of menthol smokers out there, so you got to have a menthol, one. Right? Yep. Okay. People don't know this. Before I was a Marb Light guy, I was a Salem guy.
I did. I actually went the other way around. I started, with God, I don't even remember. Oh, I started with Camels.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Lucky Strikes.
Oof.
I know, the non-filtered ones too.
Oof.
Yeah. And then I went to American Spirits, and then the vast majority of my smoking career was American Spirit menthols.
Okay. Well, towards the end there, I was I'm not going to remember the brand, but it was we used to drive to the reservation and get reservation cigarettes. They were just like a Marb Light, right? But I mean, it couldn't afford.
It was just a knockoff.
It was just a knockoff, yeah. So
Mavericks maybe?
No. I'm not going to remember. Senecas. They were called Senecas. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you know, there's the 2 tobaccos, and the 2 tobaccos come in 18 because I wanted to give them a higher at least on those. There's the almond cream coffee actually has a story behind it because that was not the original flavor.
Okay.
The original flavor was a flavor that I've been looking for a long time, which was a toasted almond bar, a Good Humor toasted almond bar.
Oh,
Okay,
that'd be good.
yeah, and we were getting close, but the more I thought about it, right, the more I was like, I don't want an ice cream bar on the line, right? I want it to be as unkid friendly as possible,
Right.
right? So we actually kept the almond cream base, but we went with a coffee on top of it, and I think it came really good. Like I'm getting like some really good comments on that
I
one.
like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. The strawberry pastry, that's one that I didn't want to do another strawberry custard because, I mean, it's been done time and time again. So this one, it vapes very, very different. It does taste more like a cooked strawberry, like a pastry. The peach watermelon, that's my story because when I first started vaping, I didn't care what flavors were. I just wanted something that tasted just like my Marb Light at that time, right? So back then it was only decaying. I mean, that's what I had.
Right.
But the two flavors that I discovered after tobacco that got me into the world of flavors was peach and watermelon, right?
Oh, nice.
You can't smoke a peach, you can't smoke a watermelon, but you can sure as hell vape the of them, right?
I don't know. Have you ever tried?
Huh? Smoke a peach or smoke one? I don't know. You have?
No, I'm just wondering. Maybe we should.
Maybe we should try it, right?
I'm-
So that led to the peach watermelon, and then the coconut vanilla yogurt. I am a huge coconut fan, okay, but I had a hard time finding a coconut that wasn't overly incensey. That's what I noticed from coconuts. It's too much coconut; it becomes like an incensey coconut,
Yeah.
and the coconut vanilla yogurt. To answer the question, what's my favorite? I would say I have three that I switch between, and that's the peach watermelon, the coconut vanilla yogurt, and the strawberry pastry.
Which one are you vaping right now?
All three of them.
Oh, you have.
There's actually all three of them.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I just got
Nice.
back from New York, so I broke out some of the
Hey, at least you're
my
honest.
nicer devices. Yeah,
Nice.
but that tends to be what I go through. The interesting thing that I noticed about those three flavors too is that I don't have to take my coil out. I can put one flavor on top of another flavor, and during that transition period, it winds up being an all new flavor, and it's good.
That's
Those
cool.
three kind of work together. Yeah, work
Right
well
on.
together. Yeah. So that's the story of B. All right, you got more for me?
What would you say your biggest challenge was in creating the line?
Steeping. Steeping. So many people asked me like back in the day, Phil, do you steep your e-liquids? Do you do this? Do you do that? I said no. I just get it and I vape it up, right?
Right.
But come to find out that steeping is very, very real.
It is real.
It is so ridiculously real because so the recipes came from several different places. One of the places, William, I got to call him William over at Molecule Labs. He's their flavorist, and he did just a remarkable job working with me. He was so easy to work with, such a good guy to work with. He did a great job, but it was always like he would say, and I would vape it, and I'm like, and I have a small lab. You saw the small lab that I've got in there, so it was like this collaborative effort. But you get it, and he would say, just what, let it sit for a week, and he goes, go back to it and revisit. And I go back into it. I'm like, well, it's much better now, But I mean, the flavors were it was like a year-long process just to come up with the flavors, and it's not a huge line, but just to get them tuned and dialed into where I want them. It's very interesting because flavor creation, I've come to learn that if you give it another day, it could potentially get a little bit better. I'm not talking steeping. I'm talking about messing with the formula. Right. But at some point, you got to say, okay, enough is enough, right? And you got to move forward. But yeah, that was it was just such a long, drawn out process, and it was because of the steeping. Right. So I would say, there were a lot of challenges, but that's the one that really sticks out. And God knows William probably hated me towards the end of the whole thing.
That's
but
funny.
but that was it. Yeah, steeping.
I remember when I thought
Who'da
steeping
thunk it?
was a myth.
You thought so too,
I
right?
sure did. But definitely is not.
And you got guys, I take my bottle and I put it here, and I take my bottle. Actually, I have one guy, you know what I do? I take my bottle and I put it on the washing machine when it's in spin cycle and shakes up the bottle. I swear to God, right? I'm like, you guys are crazy. You guys are all out of your minds, right? You don't have to do that. And
do you do that now? Is that how you steep your juice?
No. I sit on the washing machine and spin cycle. I did get But yeah, steeping. How about
get
that?
that jar of Aquaphor?
Yeah, go get that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I wound up getting a magnetic stirrer with a heat plate, to experiment, like trying to rapidly steep or fake steep or whatever you want. Got the ultrasonics, the bottles. I mean, you name it. I tried it just to speed up that process.
Were you able to get it? Were you able to speed it up?
Yeah, we're able to speed it up a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's just still nothing like shelf time, really. You know, isn't that
That's
crazy?
interesting.
Yeah, crazy. So yeah, steep time. Thank you, William, for that.
I've got 2 more questions for you.
Okay. And by the way, guys, I didn't know that this was happening, but he kind of
He
swung this on me last night and this morning.
he didn't know,
Yeah.
but I decided he's interviewed enough people. It's time for him to do a little. We'll flip the script a little bit. So,
Okay.
2 questions for
Yeah.
you. One of them serious, one of them not so serious.
Okay.
We'll start with the serious one.
Okay.
Future of vaping. What do you see happening in the U.S.?
Well, I could tell you what I hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody can tell you like what it's going to be. Because
That was my answer too.
yeah, you know, every day it's like a new bill and a new challenge and a new fight. You know, I hope that states get organized. I hope that everybody can put their differences and their drama aside and start to work together better. You know, it seems like there's too many personal conflicts out there. It seems like, you know, everybody wants to be the savior of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, I don't care who saves the industry. I just want the industry to be saved.
Right.
Right. So I really, you know, call for unity, call for everybody to get, you know, organized and get those state associations up, because, you know, people don't realize that we're fighting this on 2 fronts, federal and state. And even if we beat the FDA, states can shut us down just as quick. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that in California. We're seeing that in Pennsylvania.
New Jersey.
You were seeing the potential flavor ban in New Jersey. And, you know, in New Jersey, that flavor ban is very, very interesting, because for those of you who don't know, they're trying to take out menthol there too. Okay, now, I don't want vapors and organizations to say, well, we're just going to sit back because big tobacco is not going to let them take away menthol. It's just not going to happen.
Well, no, they're not. And all that would happen is they'd take menthol out of it and everything else would still go to hell.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So you can't become complacent. You got to fight it every step of the way. You know, whether you're SFATA or your VTA or your state, so you just got to get together. You got to get coordinated, and you can't just become complacent with the. You could never think that the guy next to you is going to take care of it all. You know, you got to get involved. So, do I think vaping is going to remain the way it is today, tomorrow? Absolutely not. I think it's going to change. It's got to change, right? I just hope that
it doesn't necessarily mean for the worse either.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think there's a lot of, you know, potentially bad players out there. We've seen some of the labeling. We've seen some of the stuff that can be improved and changed. It would be nice if the industry grew up in many, many different ways. I mean, you know that, and you know, people, when you start talking about that and when you start saying that, you get a lot of hate. But, you know, people tend to not want to hear the truth. But I mean, that is the truth. The industry does need to grow up and be a little bit more professional. A very interesting show that I went to was the TPE recently. Okay, where you had one side that was tobacco, big tobacco, and you had the other side that was vaping. And I heard, and I know you agree with this too. And they're like, why are you going there and supporting, you know, a show like that with big tobacco sitting right over there? I said, you know what? We as vapors need to be where the smokers are. We need to be in tobacco shops, and because I mean
we just talked about this last night.
I know.
Yep. That's every person that walks in there is a smoker.
Right. I mean, why not grab those people, right?
Those are the people that we need to target.
Absolutely. But when you see the level of professionalism on one side of the room versus the level on the other side of the room, we can actually learn a lot from big tobacco. We really can. You know, just the way they present themselves, the way they do business. You're not going to find any childish ads on that side of the room. No. You know, no.
They did it at one time, though.
They did, and they certainly learned that is not the way to go. You know, they got slapped back. You know, because I always say, like, you know, I try not to be attractive to the younger generation. Well, with every year that kind of goes away anyway. But what I'm talking about is, you know, we banter around again this 95% number, but that also means that it's 5%. Even if we use the 95% number, that also means that it's 5% not as safe as doing nothing.
Right.
I don't want to be the one that attracts that, you know, that person that wasn't going to do anything to do this.
Right.
Because then I feel like I'm no better than the Marlboro man.
Right.
And that weighs heavy on my shoulders. I want to talk to the smoker who wants to convert, not to the guy who's not doing anything who wants to all of a sudden become a vapor.
Right.
Right. So there's that. So what do I think for the future of vaping? I think we're going to see, and we know we're going to see more and more of these closed systems coming out, because basically if you read the FDA regulations, supposedly it's going to be easier to get them through the PMTA process, but I don't think anything is going to get through the PMTA process. I think that's too big a gamble.
Yep.
You know, we look at our we look at our our government right now, it all being Republican. I think we have a better opportunity right now to maybe get some of the regulations changed, maybe to get them to be like re-looked at and re-examined, and because when TPD came out, it was like, oh no, that I mean that's
Right.
like right now I will trade you TPD for FDA all day long.
It's not that unreasonable.
No, it's really not. It's really not. And like we talked, I think one of the big problems with the industry is that there's no dollar amount to entry,
Right.
right?
Yep. That's very, very low barrier of entry.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And it brings a lot of players that we don't necessarily want in, right? Yeah.
It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a
Mhm.
good thing that people were able to get into it and be successful. That wouldn't have had the money to start their own business in
Mhm.
another industry, but unfortunately, there's some negatives that go along with that too.
Yeah, yeah, and like even there, you're torn because you have people that are actually living the American dream again.
Yep.
The rags to riches stories all over the place with vaping, but there's also a lot of stuff that I think is attracting unnecessary and negative attention to the industry too. And I would love to see a lot of that stuff go away.
Yep.
Right. Did I answer that question?
You did.
I did, but I answered it kind
That's
of like
okay. That's
It's
pretty much how you roll.
Yeah,
So.
it's a tough question, man. It's a tough question.
So
I mean, nobody can tell the future, right?
no. All right, one more for you.
Mm-hmm. Is this a fun one or a serious
This
one?
is the fun one. So we talked about the future. Now it's time to talk about the past.
Oh no.
I want to know more about Miami Phil. Let's hear more about DJ Phil. What kind of music did you spin? I want to hear. I want to hear some stories.
I don't know if I ever told the whole story, but the interesting thing that you did just there, and you don't even know it, is you called me Miami Phil.
Was that actually what they called you?
That was the first name. Miami Phil was the first name before there was ever a DJ Miami.
Really?
Okay, yeah, and so the story is this. Okay, I go to my very first teen club. It was a birthday party, and I got to go to this teen club. And now you got to understand, I am before this. I am a Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, rocker. At that point,
You're
I'm a
speaking
rocker.
my language.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, right? Iron Maiden, all of those.
I'm going to
groups.
see them this summer.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I go to this teen club, and I'm dressed in black jeans and a black rock concert T-shirt because that's what I wore, back then. And so here I am at this teen club, and I'm really digging the whole scene, right? I'm liking the music. I'm liking, and this is just a very, very young PBusardo. I was like 16 years old. And I was like, I wanted to go back, and not just for a birthday party, but I wanted to go back. I kind of enjoyed it, but I didn't have an identity back then that fit into the nightclub scene,
Right.
right? So I'm like, I need a different style of dress. I need to kind of look the part a little bit, right? So back then there was a TV show that was on that was very much known for the way people were dressing. It was Miami Vice,
Right.
right? So I started to get into all the pastel colors and like the open shirt with the tank top on underneath, and the whites and everything. And I wound up getting the nickname at this teen club, Miami Phil. And so it's like, it's kind of cool because the name, I didn't come up with the name was actually given to me, right? So again, going to the teen clubs. Eventually, this one teen club that we were regulars at the time closed. And thank you, Mom and Dad, because Mom and Dad had to haul my ass to the teen club all the time. This is before I was driving, right? And this teen club closed, and I'll never forget that night because there was like so much. We became such like a community of friends. We all knew we were going to be there, and the DJ is on the microphone crying as he like says goodbye to everybody for the last time. The owner of that club comes up to me because I was a regular at this point, and he's like, "We're opening up a new club, okay? And I want to get your address because all of our regulars we want to." And this is just a teen club at the right. But I said, "Okay, well here's the information." And sure enough, I get a message from him that here's the grand opening. The place was called La Cage, and it was in Wayne, New Jersey. And so I get this invitation, and here I am now at this, and the place was nicer. It had cool lights and everything. So I'm back there, and I wound up being a bartender there.
Yeah.
but there was, it was a teen club, so it wasn't bartending. It was a soda jerk, right?
Right.
Right. But that was cool. And I go up to the owner. I'm like, you know what? I got some ideas. There's these contests we could do. We could do this. We could do that. We could do this. He's like, those are some really good ideas. Hold on a second. He throws me the keys to the club. He goes, you're our new manager.
Wow.
Okay. I'm 17 years old, and I'm running a nightclub at 17 years old, which was an amazing experience and a really kind of cool opportunity. But I was always fascinated by the DJ, right? Because the DJ, he knew everybody in the club. He was like the popular guy. He was the one who was controlling the party, and I was really fascinated by it. And I was fascinated by the mix. I was fascinated by mixing music, making beats match and everything. And what I used to do is I used to go in early, and because I wanted to teach myself how to mix music, how to like match beats and everything. And I did. I taught myself. I'll never forget. I was at home, and I had like one like old turntable and like one like portable like child's turntable.
Yeah.
And there was no such thing as pitch control on that. And I had to like spin one record to go like this faster, and I had to run my hand along the side of one to get slower. And all of a sudden those beats matched, and boom, I was hooked. That was it. That was all it took. And you know, I just
manual DJing.
yeah, you know, I mean, back when I started, there was no such thing. I mean, there was no such thing as a crossfader. It was all rotary. Everything was rotary. The old Uri style mixers, and I started doing like alternative parties there with alternative style music. You might want to call it new wave. That's what we called it back then.
Yep. Yeah, like Joy Division.
Exactly
Depeche
right.
Mode.
Exactly. Depeche Mode. Exactly right.
Yep.
New Order. Right.
Yep.
And you know, I would DJ those, and I just got into it more and more and more. And then eventually that club closed, and I had a mobile DJing business. Again, I'm like 16 or 17, 18 years old. But I was just such a fan of, and it was, for me, it was never like a popularity thing. For me, it was like just controlling the crowd. Okay. Like giving as much of myself to that crowd as I possibly could and making them move, because I always looked at it like it was almost like a spiritual thing for me. Like when I DJ'd and I left, I could tell by like what kind of mood that crowd was in.
Mm-hmm.
Were they in a receptive mood? Were they in a good mood? Were they in a bad mood? How much of myself do I had to give? Because if the crowd was in a really good mood and I moved them all night long, right, I left the club like packed with energy, like unbelievable. If the crowd was in not so good a mood and I had to like give myself to them to make them move and have a good time, I would leave the club exhausted. So it was like this energy transfer thing. It was a really cool, and I had a really good run. The when I moved here to Rochester, you know, I started in a small bar here, and then that small bar closed because there was actually a shooting in there. I was DJing while the shooting happened. A couple of my friends got shot, and
yeah, right.
Yeah, everybody. Everybody. One person walks with a limp right now. A patron who got shot at the front wound up being paralyzed. I didn't know who he was. Right. It was a beef between some off-duty cops, and some kids from the street, and you know, it was pretty crazy. But that club closed, and the owner of that said, "You're going to come and work at the new club when we open it up." And the name of the club was the Ocean Club in Rochester, and it was the club in Rochester. So that's kind of how I got my break, because you know, that's like one of those things where there's 100 guys who want to do it, and there's 3 positions out there. Right. And you know, and it just took off. I think that I was really good at what I did. I loved moving the crowd. I loved entertaining the crowd. I wound up broadcasting live on the radio from the DJ booth, so we did that whole thing, and it was really fun. But I always said, when it became a job, it was time to move on, because it was something that I loved so much. Because it was never my career. My career was always engineering, so this was something I did in the spare time. So it was more like a hobby than anything else. And I'll never forget, I was in the Home Depot parking lot, and I said to myself, I have to DJ tonight, right? For years and years and years, it was, I can't wait to DJ tonight. Yeah. And it became, I have to DJ tonight. Called up the owner, quit on the spot. And that was the end. And that was really like when I was kind of transitioning to vaping, and there was this little lull there of where, you know, I didn't have that creative outlet anymore. I couldn't, you know, entertain people anymore. And that's kind of like when I started the reviews, because I had that spare time. Right. And so I kind of combined, I always say this, I combined the DJing entertaining side and the engineering side, put them together, and boom, now you got,
And here we are.
Now you got the reviews. And, yeah, I know.
Nice.
But I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. The music was it was kind of new wave, because I mean, I was doing it long enough where I went through a bunch of different genres of music. It was the whole new wave, but then it was like also some club and some 70s and some 80s back then. Then it became freestyle, like Stevie B, Johnny O, Cynthia. I was really big into that scene. Then it became some more. It kind of went clubby for a while. Then it became the whole techno thing, right? And then it went real hip hop for a while. And then when I got out, it was starting, the beats per minute were starting to head back up.
Yeah.
Because what was popular on TV was the Jersey Shore.
Right.
Okay. And those guys were fist bumping on TV, and all of a sudden it made everybody realize that, hey, that Euro techno stuff is, that electro stuff is like really good.
Yeah.
We should be, and like the whole music scene kind of changed again. But yeah, it was a whole bunch of different scenes, whole bunch of different music, whole bunch of different clubs, and it was fun. I don't regret any of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the first time I told the story. Awesome. Yeah, it's all because I dressed like Don Johnson. How crazy is that?
Who?
Don Johnson.
I'm just kidding. I just like to bust your balls about being old. When you said you dressed like an old show, I was gonna make a joke about the Ed Sullivan show, but you can
make all the jokes you want. I don't care. I always say we're not getting older, we're getting better. Yeah. Right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's the one I'm going to keep telling myself anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like a fine wine.
Like a fine wine. Yeah. Speaking of fine wines, and this has nothing to do with fine wines, but I did get a little bit nervous before because he pulls out a big tube of, like, a big container of petroleum jelly. And usually the only person who does that is like Dimitri, because we got that thing going on,
it's
right?
Multi-use.
Yeah. And but you got a new tattoo.
I did get a new tattoo.
And what is the tattoo of? It's on the screen right now.
It's going to be on the screen.
It will be on the screen right now. Yeah.
It is Voltron, Defender of the Universe, which was my favorite show as a child, as a very young child, and I've kind of been following different movements in the tattoo scene and some of the newer styles of tattooing, like Zoil and Trash Polka and some of the European styles that have been coming out. And I've really enjoyed watercolor. So I got Voltron done watercolor style.
It's really cool.
I think it looks badass. It'll look a lot better once it's not red, because you can't see the yellow as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a little red.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, by the way, he shows up to my house today, Rochester, New York. It's freezing outside in shorts. Okay. And he warned me last night. He's like, I might show up to your house in shorts. So I'm thinking to myself, well, are you overheating or what? Because it does tend to get a little warm down here. But he's like, no, I got a new tattoo. And sure enough.
I'm also always warm because I'm a big guy, too.
Yeah, well, you and me both. You and me both. Yeah, it's constant. And I am a sweater, too. So, and not the kind that you wear, but just the kind that you do, right?
I have a sweater. Built in.
I shave mine off.
Do you?
Yeah. A lot of people make fun of me for that, and I really don't care.
I used to.
Did you?
Yeah, I used to play football, and it would get caught in my pads, so I shaved it.
So you played football?
I did.
What else, first of all? So, Vaping magazine, you made the cover.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that whole experience? How did that?
It was cool. It was fun. It was a fun interview. We did like a written interview, and the photo shoot was fun. They wanted to do something that was kind of, professional but personal, and like, one of the things I'm into is medieval fantasy and not necessarily fantasy, medieval and fantasy, and I actually collect medieval weapons, so I brought a couple in for the photo shoot, and the cover ended up being me with a shirt and tie and a battle axe.
Right, so that is where the battle axe came from. Because when I saw the battle axe, I was like, why does he have a battle axe? What is that?
It's in the. You obviously didn't read the article.
I didn't read the whole thing, but I
talked about the. I talked a little bit about the collection in there. So, but yeah, I thought it was fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was.
So you have a big collection?
It's decent size, growing slowly. Yeah, I have a few that are. I have some super nerdy ones that aren't sharp that are actually meant for like SCA, steel on steel combat. If you ever want to come over and have a sword fight for real.
For real.
Without potential limb loss.
Okay.
And then I've got some that are battle ready just in case when the zombie apocalypse happens, because we are going to run out of bullets at some point.
Yeah.
And then I have some antiques too that are actual, like, 1700s, and
that's really cool. So is that your weakness? Like,
I I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I it's probably my. I mean, as far as like collecting, yeah, that's kind of like how you are with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
See.
cool. This has been an awesome interview. I've like totally enjoyed this. I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't know if I'm going to have to break this into two parts or what. I don't know how much memory is left on my computer. But anything you want to wrap up with? Anything? Any closing thoughts? Anything there?
um, just you know, regarding everything that's gone on with the FDA and all of this state crap that's been coming down the pipe. Just to reiterate what you said earlier, that we need to really get focused and work as a team and become a unified front,
Yeah.
because I think that's really the only way that we're going to be successful. They were able to do that in Indiana, um, you know, but we need to, that's a small victory, and we need a lot more small victories plus a couple of big ones too.
Yeah.
And I really think the only way that we're going to do that is if people focus and we all get on the same page, and some of the different advocacy groups really start working together, and
Yeah.
not just look, not just working together in the public eye, but actually working together. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know exactly
You
what you're
know what
saying.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
everybody's buddy when hey, like, yeah, look, let's take a picture
Right.
together, and they turn around, they stab each other in the back. Yeah, no, I know.
So yeah, I mean, I hope that everybody can maintain a positive attitude, but don't rely, but don't rely on other people to do the work. If everybody put a little bit of effort in,
Yeah,
if everybody started showing up for some of these advocacy meetings and actually
absolutely.
learning. I mean, it's sad when you go to a convention that's packed and you go to an advocacy panel and there's nobody sitting there in the seats. And I know you've seen
Oh
that.
my God, we've seen that so many
So
times. I told you, I said, the advocacy groups need to start, throwing out T-shirts, hats, and free juice, and maybe we'll get somebody in front of them and talk to them. I know,
yeah,
it's not good. I mean, this is a very real thing that we're going through. It's a very real threat, and we understand that it has the potential to shut down the industry. We understand that it has the potential to, I mean, like all of the work and the effort and the money of people who put into that. People don't want to lose that.
no,
People don't want to lose their investments. People don't want to lose their jobs. People don't want to lose their livelihoods. But you think beyond that, there's a lot of lives that are at stake here if
yeah.
this all goes away. You call the cloud
Some
chasers.
say a billion.
Some say a billion. Exactly right. A billion lives. Some will say that a lot of the childish labeling and the direction that vaping has taken is a negative, but in a way, it's also a positive because it has propelled the industry to places that I never thought it was going to go, just
Yep.
years ago. But I think it's important to have balance. I think it's important to always think about that smoker in addition to the vapor, and it's really important to fight and get involved at this point.
Yep,
Right?
absolutely.
You agree?
Everybody needs to do, and if everybody just put a little bit of effort in, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I know, and
You
it
know,
really and think about like how it is that you can help. Right? I mean, if you can't do this, well, then do that.
right?
And if you can't donate $100, donate $5. But if every vapor did a little something, it would be massive.
If all of the states could coordinate and get a group together in each individual state and get vapors to just donate a few bucks a piece, they'd be able to pay for at least one excellent lobbyist in each state, and that would make a huge difference.
Yeah. And the videos that I have coming up after you see this one, VTA actually did a couple of really good presentations at Vape Event New York, where they talk about number one the issues in New York, some of the issues facing vaping, but they also talk about like how to get your state organization up running, how to
Yep.
actually do it. There's kind of like a little like
And
some
that's
guidelines.
important. Most people don't know what to do.
I'm like that's why I carry Dimitri with me everywhere.
Yeah.
Number one, I make him look really good. But number two, I mean,
You're a good wingman.
He's the advocacy guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never been my game. I help out where I can and how I can.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's the one who knows the organizations and the groups and the players and the names and all that stuff. So we have our own little thing, and I think that's why we work so well together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we do have quite a few customers among the viewers and followers on your channel. So thank you, everybody that is. Thank you, everyone that is not, that may potentially be. we're just going to keep doing what we're doing and try to keep our customers happy. Do what we're doing on the advocacy side. Um, we do a lot more behind the scenes than we do publicly. Just it's really more because I'm going to try to say this without.
I know exactly where you're going to
I
go,
don't want
but
to
yeah,
badmouth anybody. I just hate when people use like their involvement in advocacy as a marketing tool,
right.
and we don't do that.
Which is very commendable, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. It's it's hard. It's tempting because it would get us a decent amount of exposure in some cases, but I'd rather just keep it off the radar and continue to focus and help when we can help and do what we do and keep our customers happy. Just try to keep Giant Vapes the place to get the best quality juice brands in the country and go from there.
And I said we were going to wrap up, but you just reminded me of something that you said before too. That's also commendable, and I wish a lot of online shops as well would do this. You talked about hardware before, and you said we're not going to carry every new piece of hardware that comes out. Well, first of all, I don't know if you can right now, but because of 8.8. But I mean, there's a reason behind that, and there's a lot of because there's a lot of online shops that they don't necessarily know a lot about a product. They just know it's new, so they carry it. Right? You have a little bit of a different philosophy. You want to talk to that real quick?
Yeah, and it's actually it kind of came up, but we didn't really speak to it in detail earlier when we were talking about Aspire, because at one point they were the most reliable China-made product on the market.
Right.
That was why we chose to carry them as the one brand from China we were carrying, and the market's changed a lot. There's a lot of good products on the market now. There's a lot of demand for those products. Our customers want them. They want to be able to come to one place, get everything they need, and just call it a one-stop shop. And we're trying to move toward that goal now that the reliability of the products on the market has improved, and I feel more comfortable putting the putting something like like a Smoke Tech Alien or something like that under the Giant Vapes name, because I feel more confident now that they're a better quality product, and we're going to not have customers having issues with them. And that's really what it comes down to, is we don't want to carry products that customers are going to have problems with. We want them to have a positive experience with Giant Vapes. It's the the core value behind everything that we do. We want to take care of our customers, keep them as customers, make sure they're happy, and they'll continue to support us, and we'll continue to support them, and it's a big happy community. And it was for a time very difficult to do with hardware, because there were so many issues with so many different brands, with return rates and failure rates and all this, but we finally found a distributor that we're able to work with closely, that's able to provide failure rate data for us, and they're providing return rate data for us, so we can see how each one of these products is being viewed by the public, if they're having issues with them, to some degree longevity. That's you can't go too far out with it, but at least not having any issues within the first month or two, and it's going to allow us to expand our offering, because we'll be able to offer the same return policies that we do on everything that we have now, and be confident that we're providing properly vetted products to our customers. So like you mentioned, we're never going to be the place that you're going to be able to get that product that just came out today,
right?
Because we don't know,
you don't know
if
enough
it's
about
going
it.
to work. Yeah, we don't know if it's going to work in 2 weeks. We want to properly vet it. We want to make sure it's a good quality product, and if it is, and the customers really like it, then we'll bring it on.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons that I'm like really slow on the reviews is because I do actually use the product, right? Not to mention all the traveling and everything, but even when you do use a product, I mean, I feel horrible when I like thumb up a device and then I get an email, hey, I feel I was using it, based on your review, and it lasted me a couple of days and it broke, right? That makes me feel terrible. I mean, it really does.
I had the same issue when I was doing the high, and one of the issues that I ran into, because a lot of the reviews that I was doing were for stuff that was either handmade or small run machine stuff. What they'd do is they'd pick out the best one out of the line and send it to me for review, and oh my god, it was great. And then 25% of them end up having problems. There's nothing you can do. You feel bad, though. You do feel bad, but unfortunately there isn't anything you can do about it.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So much for wrapping this video up. I have to ask you. I think one more thing.
Okay.
I think one more thing. So I think anybody who's been in the industry for as long as we've been, as long as you've been, there had to be a point somewhere where you had some kind of slight love affair for ProVary and the ProVape product.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
maybe okay, right,
right out of the gate.
okay.
Pretty much. I got my Kago, and then I was looking into variable voltage devices, and like the Provari was like, or Provari was the one.
It's actually ProVary.
It is ProVary.
It is
yeah,
ProVary
like
for variable. Yeah,
right. Makes sense. Jinx, you owe me a Coke. That was like the the product on the top of the mountain.
It was the Mecca.
It was the Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
It was the best product on the market, and I actually had a couple of them. I enjoyed them,
Mm-hmm.
and I used it with a. Like I said earlier, I can't remember if the first Jenny I ever used was an iHybrid
The Ziadi.
or the Ziadi Pro,
Yeah.
but I used it with a Ziadi Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't use it for a long time, not because I didn't like it, but because I got that Samovar Spomesto setup. So I ended up switching over to that because it was basically the same thing but variable wattage.
Yeah.
So, but they are beautiful devices.
Still to this day, and I still use my my radius every now and then. I'll grab one of the tube mods just for nostalgic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget the day that they released the blue version of the LED. Right?
I remember
I literally had to have it. I was like, blue. Oh my god, it's blue. I have to have it, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were that way back then. So how do you feel about like what's happened to that company and them going away?
I think it's sad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that they unfortunately didn't evolve with the times as they should have. I understand why they did what they did with sticking to their guns and maintaining, quality control and everything. But, that would be like a computer company not adopting new technology with their chips and CPUs, and it just doesn't.
Right.
I don't know, it doesn't make sense. It's. I hate talking poorly about them, but I think at the end of the day, it's their own fault.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to admit that I think that the whole FDA regulation thing was part of the problem.
Yes,
but it
for
wasn't
sure.
the entire problem.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now maybe we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Is there anything that you would like to say before we close?
I think I'm good.
I think you said it all.
I'm good.
Mike, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the talk, and I really, really enjoyed it. And especially spending a couple of days with you. It's good. I think you're a great guy, and I wish you...
You're pretty all right, too, there, bud.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And I do wish you, all your employees, and with whatever you guys are doing over there at Giant Vapes, all the success in the world.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Same for you
coming
and your liquid line.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Can I taste your juice?